Runner for real stunner. I'ma do my numbers. I'm like the glove on his prime, taking the ball from you. I'm a globe trotter. My 3 game off the chain. Man, I'm in the lane, LeBron James, I'ma bang that. Better get out my way. They see it in the stands. With Hamilton with the hands. Truck slam dunk champ. The competition, man. Y'all ain't got a chance. Plus, like I hit that 3 with 3 seconds left, and I'm down by 2 in the last of a 7-game series to beat you. Who high? Y'all not.
LeBron James, one of the best players in NBA history, was arguably the best high school player ever and the first high school basketball megastar to be extensively featured on ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Sporting News, and other sports publications. James played at Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's, a private Catholic school, which is a stark difference of James' upbringing in some of the tougher Akron neighborhoods. But as soon as James stepped foot in high school, he was dominating the Ohio basketball scene in Ohio's Division III circuit. His freshman season, he averaged 18 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 3.6 assists, starting every game and leading St. Vincent St. Mary's to a Division III state title over Jamestown Greenview. He shot 51% from the field, 31 from 3, and 79 from the free throw line, and his 2 best stat lines on the year were a 27-7-4 line and a 25-9-5 line, which came in the state title game with him shooting 10-12. The Fighting Irish finished that year 27-0, and James was named All-Ohio Division III First Team and State Tournament MVP. His current business partner, Maverick Carter, was in the starting lineup for the state championship game as well. Starting his sophomore year, buzz was beginning to grow, and St. Vincent St. Mary started to schedule a tougher out-of-state schedule for stiffer competition, facing teams from Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, including powerhouse Oak Hill Academy. LeBron exploded his sophomore year, averaging 25, 7, and 5 with 3.7 steals and 1.6 blocks. His percentages improved to 58% shooting, 39 from 3, and 71 from the free throw line. Against Oak Hill, who always featured top D1 recruits, St. Vincent St. Mary suffered its only loss that season, but James had 33 points on 13-26 shooting, and his season high came against Benedictine with 41-9-6 on 16-20 shooting. James was named All-Ohio Division III First Team again, USA Today All-America First Team, Mr. Basketball in the state of Ohio and the United States, and James led the Irish to back-to-back Division III state titles with a win over Casstown Miami East, but not before barely beating Haviland Wayne Trace in the semifinals by 6, with James getting absolutely no help from anyone on his team, and with the Irish actually losing by 1 at halftime. In the title game against Casstown, his lifelong friend and future professional player Romeo Travis shot 2 of 13, but James' 25-10 was enough to bring home the title. At the start of his junior season, the hype was beginning to be a real thing. ESPN the magazine featured him on their Next section, and the Irish moved from Ohio's Division III to Division II, and the out-of-state schedule got even tougher. By now, the ticket frenzy had grown so crazy that Irish games were being moved to the University of Akron gym, which sat about 6,000 people. The Irish schedule included games against teams from New York, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Kentucky, Missouri, and New Jersey. And while James and the Irish were off to a 7-0 start, their big issues were starting to appear in games against more well-rounded opposition. James's poor free throw shooting, keeping the games close, blowing second-half leads, and the overall team around him not holding their weight. In a December slam dunk to the beach tournament in Delaware against Amityville High from New York, James had a monster night with 39, 6, and 5, but the Irish blew a 10-point second-half lead and lost. And despite this crazy sequence when LeBron hit a 3 to tie and got fouled to put the Irish up 1 with seconds left in overtime, they then committed a foul and the Amityville player hit 2 free throws to win 84-83 in overtime. Later that season against George Junior Republic from Pennsylvania, James had 20 and 10 but was held to 8 of 20 shooting, and the Irish blew a 9-point halftime lead and a 7-point lead after the third quarter to lose by 1, 58-57 in overtime. Drew Joyce III, who would later go on to play college ball himself, was still short at this time and would get bullied by bigger guards, and in this game he went 2 of 12 shooting. The Irish shot only 5 of 29 from 3 this game, and that would be a bigger problem down the road. During this same season, James would face Oak Hill again, but this time against a highly touted Baltimore transfer named Carmelo Anthony. James and Anthony had an epic duel, but Oak Hill's more talented roster prevailed. James had 36 points on 12 of 27 shooting with 8 rebounds and 5 assists, but Anthony put up 34 points and 11 rebounds and led his team to a 72-66 win in front of 11,000 people in New Jersey. February 18, 2002, in the midst of his junior year, is when the world was formally introduced to LeBron, with his famous The Chosen One Sports Illustrated cover. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch in the regional playoffs when a crowd of over 20,000 packed Gund Arena, the former name of the now Cavs Quicken Loans Arena, to watch James demolish Warrensville Heights 78-49. It was reported that ticket scalpers were selling tickets anywhere from $50 to $100, and the following season Time Warner Ohio was offering a pay-per-view package for LeBron's high school games. While LeBron's teams were narrowly losing to some of the elite private out-of-state academies like Oak Hill, the gap between St. Vincent St. Mary's and Ohio schools was starting to be woefully apparent. Heading into the 2002 state final in Columbus at Ohio State's gym, LeBron and the crew had rattled off 63 straight wins against Ohio competition with only a handful of close games. But amidst all of the hoopla, one off-the-radar Catholic school in Cincinnati named St. Bernard Roger Bacon didn't seem to be bothered. Bacon had a talented senior group including Josh Hausfeld, who later played college ball at Miami of Ohio, and Beckham Wyrick, who went on to play at UNC Wilmington. Wyrick would draw the defensive assignment on James in the title game, but first, let's rewind to their December regular season matchup. Coach Bill Brewer, knowing his Bacon team had a good chance of making it to the D2 final, and most likely against James and the Irish, scheduled a game against St. Vincent St. Mary's in December to field them out at a tournament in Kent State. Bacon lost 79-70, but according to their players, nearly their entire starting five was in foul trouble, and James showed disrespect by not jumping for the opening tip. Afterwards, players caught the referees of the game asking James for pictures, and the game was tied at 66 with under 4 minutes left, but James and Drew Joyce III pulled the Irish to victory.
We played them tough in December, and the first time we matched them up, and we made a couple of adjustments defensively. And really in the second game, what we wanted to do was, we knew LeBron was going to get his points, and we wanted to kind of stop the players around him from getting off, and we did a pretty good job of that, and I think that's a big part of the reason that we won the game.
Now, Coach Brewer actually scheduled a game against St. Vincent St. Mary, LeBron's team, for December 22nd, 2001 at Kent State. How did playing in that game help you prepare? You guys lost that game by 9 points. How did playing in that game help you prepare for that state championship game looking back?
Right, we lost the game by 9 points, but it was closer than that. We were leading actually for the first 2 quarters, and going into that game in December, there was a lot of nerves and things like that, and even though we lost, that let us know that we could play with them, and as we shook hands there during the final, as the buzzer sounded in December, we all were thinking, we'll see you guys again in March, and that prepared us well for the game.
Inside the practice gym of Roger Bacon, assistant coach Tom Thompson described the attitude of the Bacon players when LeBron's SI cover came out.
They get a hold of the Sports Illustrated, the Chosen One thing, and the first thing we're thinking, what are those idiots doing? They're hanging it. Remember that? Joe Corcoran's the one that's, get that down. That's not, you don't do it. Well, here, they're throwing stuff at it. As soon as the Chosen One thing came out, these guys were throwing stuff at it, and they're using it as a dartboard. I mean, our guys had no fear.
In addition, a curious news brief during an Indiana NCAA tournament game the night before the final got the Bacon players all the motivation they needed before tip-off.
We need to finish state champion, They got to come beat us. I'm not being cocky, but that's just how player I am. I'm guaranteeing I'm not going to let my team lose. I don't want my team to lose, and I know they don't want to lose, and I ain't going to let it happen.
The game went back and forth, but the game first started with Wyrick placing a forearm right into LeBron's chest, setting the tone. Bacon and St. Vincent St. Mary's went back and forth in the first half, with buckets by Wyrick and Hausfeld, and Roger Bacon led by 1 going into the break. But after LeBron scored 8 in the first quarter, he had 0 in the second and was aloof for big stretches of the game, something that caught the attention of Bacon players, as then they compare it to some of the criticism James faces now in his career. Roger Bacon went on an 11-0 run in the third quarter, but James's half-court buzzer beater to end the third brought it to within 5. After a quiet first half, James got it going and would drop 24 of his 32 in the second half. Future European standout Romeo Travis had 19 of his own, but fouled out midway through the fourth quarter. James had a thunderous dunk and an and-one layup to bring the Irish to within 1. But after a Drew Joyce turnover and a layup at the other end for Roger Bacon, the Irish found themselves down 66-63 with 30 seconds left. Remember how LeBron's critics always chastise him for passing the ball during end-of-game situations? Well,
St. Vincent St. Mary and won the Division II state championship. The first loss to a team from the state of Ohio since the 1998-99 season. Cincinnati, Roger Bacon is the Division II state champion.
But what makes this win unreal was that most everybody else on their roster never played more than lower tier college ball, if that. St. Vincent St. Mary had LeBron and Travis, who would win MVPs of 2 different leagues in Europe. Roger Bacon was the only team from the state of Ohio in LeBron's 4 years to beat him, and with the 5 total losses LeBron suffered in his high school career, the other 4 were from out-of-state private schools with players like Carmelo Anthony and other dudes who went to schools like Villanova and North Carolina, all with recruiting advantages Roger Bacon didn't have. Bacon players attribute the win to late coach Bill Brewer, a tough, military-style coach who sadly passed away 4 years later. A book was written about the team in 2012 called The Chosen Ones, the team that beat LeBron. But because of James's further success in the league, this win by Bacon is just made sweeter and sweeter as time passes. Consider that James dropped 51 next year on future NBA champion Trevor Ariza, and as previously stated, 36 on Hall of Famer Carmelo Anthony. Yet the largest margin of defeat came at the hands of the kids from Cincinnati and Roger Bacon.